Scott Golden here with the Golden Opportunities Coaching YouTube channel. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome back to those of you seasoned veterans of what we do around here. What we do around here is we try to break things down in the most simple way possible. And ultimately, we look at social and emotional and coaching and psychological topics, and we try to break those down for you. If you are dealing with today's topic, which is addiction, I do offer trauma and addiction recovery coaching, and so if that's something that would benefit you, please feel free to reach out. And the way to do that, two ways. One, you can go to my website, which is available right here in the About Me section on YouTube, or two, you can get in touch with me through Twitter at PO Perception. Either way works. Both ways will be useful. In any event, I encourage you to keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment, and we'll kind of tackle this. This is kind of signs of an addictive personality type. And so, an addictive personality type is a personality type for someone that has a tendency towards kind of becoming obsessive or repetitive with thoughts, words, deeds, actions, and addictive behaviors. So, these individuals often lack self-control. This is because the impulse to feel better, which is the main reason that any person becomes addicted to anything, is the idea that doing this or saying this or having this thing or this experience will make me feel better. It's a form of avoidance that eventually becomes a habit. The habit gives way to addiction, and before you know it, the average person is, in fact, struggling with being unable to break the cycle of that addiction, not because they necessarily are a bad person, but most often they are in a repetitive cycle in their own minds that lead to a series of behaviors that they don't necessarily feel they can break, and furthermore, the breaking of such would require them to be able to understand how to and successfully navigate the process of rewiring their brain, their mind, how they think, how they feel, how they react to the world, and that can be, obviously, as one can imagine, extremely difficult. These individuals, when not engaged in the addictive behavior or behaviors, often fall into a sense of listlessness, lack of inspiration, and even apathy. This is because many times the addictive behavior is used as a jump start or a way for the person to feel alive. Now, a person can get addicted to gambling, alcohol, sex, drugs, spending, all sorts of things. Usually the addictions are negative. However, as we'll talk about later, the transition into more positive or healthy addictions is possible and often imperative. These individuals often struggle with impulse control, the belief that being present moment minded and or being able to control emotional state in a moment is virtually impossible for them becomes a dominant belief, thereby, giving way to the repetitive addictive behavior. This is more true or even more applicable for individuals who have a family genetic history of addictive behavior personality types, and so if a person has that on one or both sides of their biological family line, they're more likely to be prone to it later in life or even as children. The last thing is the understanding that an addictive behavior at its core is a coping mechanism. And so the idea that I fight both as someone in recovery, I am currently, let's see here, let me do some basic math. 22 years this summer out of drug dependency, and 4 years out of alcohol dependency, and I've gone longer spans of time than that, 4 years. But again, here's two things about addiction: you never really beat it. Things that can cause the trigger to backslide are there, and the transition from one addiction, a negative one, into a positive one is necessary because the wiring in the brain is, in fact, prone to repetitive or addictive behaviors. So the idea that you ever completely 100% guaranteed beat an addiction is a false thought. Instead, we learn to control, we learn to understand, we learn to acknowledge triggers and temptation, and then we learn to transfer that addictive personality archetype into a more healthy behavioral system. But it doesn't, the tendency or often the craving is never going to be completely gone because it's part of our emotional makeup. Now, there are some rare cases, 1 in 10,000, 1 in 100,000, or some random number where a person just randomly, spontaneously doesn't want that thing anymore. But the personality archetype to pick up another addiction is there. And that is where the misunderstanding that addiction is beaten versus managed can be extremely damaging and painful long term and short term for the families of someone dealing with addiction and for the addict themselves. In any event, hopefully this is helpful. Keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Till next time, everybody.